Welcome to the Listen to This Bull live show. My name is Matt Mulholland. It is 2024. We are finally kicking off this season with a bang, with a very interesting bang. Let me just push this button and kick things off the right way. So we are going to be talking about unethical things that you might find in claims. I've got a guy named Zachary Baker. He goes by Zach. I'm going to pull on it just a second. But if you've never seen this show before, this is a show that is very much driven by the audience. Wherever it is you're watching this, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or YouTube or on our website, listentothisbull.com, it doesn't matter. You can put commentary in. We'll be able to see those comments immediately. So you can ask questions live. So you can help drive the show. So this is very laid back. I'm even drinking a beer over here. Hopefully Zach grabbed one too. I'm about to pull him on. Here we go. Zach, how the hell are you? Your audio is not working, or mine isn't. Let me find out. Output is there. Yeah.
You got it now?
There you are. All right.
Default to different input. No, I said I didn't grab a beer because I don't really drink, but I grabbed a caffeine-free Diet Coke, as exciting as that is.
That does sound delicious. I think I like mine better.
That's a fair analysis.
All right. So the last time you and I spoke, we were talking so much about appraisal that it kind of got lost in the shift, but we wanted to have a whole show about spotting or overcoming or really just noticing when unethical behavior is happening and what it is that you could do about it, both in a claims process, but also in dispute resolution processes. So before we get into that, though, we need to establish who the hell you are. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Zach. So
I've been in the industry. I've been in construction longer, but in this industry about 15 years. I have been a public adjuster for a little more than 10 years now, but I've handled larger losses for close to 10 years. That's actually why I became a public adjuster, because I didn't feel the public adjusters I was hiring to help me or my clients were really getting much done. And there was always like some kind of conflict and kind of just some weird stuff going on in the background. But then about 6+ years ago, I started getting into other forms of ADR and started having a lot of people I was giving a lot of free advice, spent a lot of time giving a lot of free advice. And that doesn't make you any money. And go ahead.
I've been there. All right, keep going.
Yeah. So I figured I wanted to make it a business of some sort. So largely that's what I focus on daily now is the consulting side, but that translates more into converting the consults into appropriate business, and appropriate by meaning it best serves the client with the dispute resolution pathway that we are utilizing. I'm also the assistant director of PLAN, which is the Property Loss Appraisal Network, which is founded and ran by John Robinson, who John himself is a great guy. He's been doing appraisal work and umpire work a really long time. But more than anything, it's PLAN that's great because we are by far the largest and the most thorough in property loss appraiser and umpire certification and training. It's a week-long process for both certifications. You've got to go through it again every 2 years, and it's not state or federally regulated. It's not something where you have to do it per state law, so to say. But it's a good ethical recentering, and it really helps. Even myself, like when I have gone through it, it pulls me back down to square. I mean, when you hammer nails every day, all day, it's kind of hard to kind of lose focus.
I can see that. For a second there, I thought you were going to talk some shit about John. You're like, John's a great guy. But
no, dude, I love John,
so
man.
close.
John's my people, man. He's one guy I'll never say anything bad about. I love him, man. He's a good dude.
Yeah.
He's one of those people that from every situation, which is rare in this industry, he's a guy that operates from a good faith position, and he tries to be objective all the time, even when it's not necessary, which is like
that's
key,
hard to
man.
do.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
Really hard to do. Yeah.
You know, common biases start to tie into everything. You start seeing stuff through a different lens. Anybody that has helped policyholders will see things through the policyholder's eyes to an extent, and see anything is happening as purposeful bullshit. And the carriers on their side, they see through this greed lens that they think that public adjusters and contractors have, that we're just trying to pull one over on them and get them to pay stuff that they're not required to have. And they do the same thing to policyholders who think that they're just lying to them about everything. So it's hard to get past that. But
I would make one general argument, which we can delve into obviously more deeply. When I'm a public adjuster, I think one thing I do well is I get named as umpire a lot, and primarily by IAs, people that are appraisers on the carrier side. It's not because I split the baby. It's not because they get what they want. Half the time they end up, being furious with me at the end. Both sides are. But it's I have a good ability to take one hat off and put another one on. If I could say it's one thing that I'm really good at. And it's because it is the most beneficial way to function. I would say this in all capacities. I'm a big fan of bend it, don't break it, especially as a PA. If you work to it, and this is, let me stick to my point. My point is this, because I'm about to go on a tirade. My point is this. It is mutually beneficial, is beneficial for all sides, whether we're talking about Steve Badger, this person, that, no matter who it is, for everybody to operate in a good faith manner and do their best to be honest with each other and work towards just indemnifying the insurer within the fair limits of the policy, because if not, it throws the balance of this whole thing. All of this insurance stuff is it's like Star Wars, man. It's like the Force. And if somebody too big or too many people start doing one thing, it throws everything off balance and out of track, and then it sends shockwaves either through a state or federally or whatever it is, or online, and everybody really needs to try their best to just indemnify the insured within the fair limits of the policy. As non-sexy as that sounds, man.
So which side is the umpire, and which side is the rebels?
So I think that's subjective. I think if you're a Star Wars guy, right? Even Dooku was led by the fact that he was convinced that the Jedi Order was wrong, and that what he was doing is correct, and that there was too much. You know what I'm saying? It's how life is, man. Everything's kind of gray, and you have to do your best to kind of sort through it and be fair with each other and be equitable.
Can be gray. So what do you mean by you're a big proponent for bend, don't break? What does that mean?
Bend it, don't break it, meaning something that bothers me the most, and I try and pass this along, even if it's not something I'm hired to do, to roofers that I work with sometimes. Inevitably, if they work hard, if they do the right things, they're going to make can we swear on here or no? Would you rather not?
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay, they're gonna make a fuckload of money if they do the right things. Even being fair, being equitable, they're gonna make a lot of money if they do the right things. And they work hard and they manage their business correctly, so on and so forth. What I always say to them, and I say to other PAs I know, other guys that do, well, I go, "You're not a rapper. Don't act like it. Okay? Don't take everything to this end of excess." where we all look like a collection of jackasses, and then you're raising the hair on everybody's back, even though you're a guy with good intentions or a gal with the right intentions who does the right things. Okay. Deal in that same way, deal with people in the claims process, because if you can get kind of a good faith rapport established with everybody, you can prick the heel of the giant and get enough blood where you're doing your job. You're indemnifying the insured without taking a sword and hacking their Achilles tendon, right? I mean, why fly that close to the sun? Bend it, don't break it. It's not necessary.
So
It really isn't.
basically, don't post a bunch of crap about your Lamborghinis and your Rolexes just because you did make a lot of money. It makes us look like we're a bunch of guys that are just swimming in dough. There's so much money. We shouldn't be asking for these things because they're not necessary. We don't need to make that much. We're not putting everybody's kids through college. I remember Adjusters saying that. Yeah. Oh, my internet.
Was it you?
Yeah, I think it was me. And
Okay.
it's definitely me. I can see the symbol saying that things are unstable. And that's the way Florida is sometimes.
Yeah,
Hopefully
gotcha.
the thing works out.
No, but to your point, yeah, and that's, but the thing is that there's not even really correlation sometimes to some of this, and anybody who is objective and kind of knows all sides. I worked in construction, I worked in real estate development before this, and I only got into this industry. I mean, I'm somebody who literally, I'm super proficient at all the trades. And have done all of them. I've worked on plumbing and maintained plumbing that was, brass couplings and fittings and everything from like the 20s. You know what I mean? Like mixing valves or dude, everything you'd imagine. I was asbestos and lead. I did all this stuff. But I got into it because I started working in this industry essentially really for donut engineering, which is mind-boggling for most people that know
As a
me.
consultant?
So before ladder assists were a thing, we all know ladder assist overwhelmingly. You're not holding a ladder. It's a clever title. You're there to be a quasi consultant, where you kind of you're giving them backup of some sort, right? If the engineer is out there, or you're doing the job for them. Okay.
Right.
I did that with one guy predominantly, but a couple guys with Donut Engineering, one of their bigger engineers in the Midwest, for 2 years straight. I was working in a different capacity in construction, and somebody I knew said, "Hey, I need somebody who knows this shit as well as I do, but can verbalize it better. Because I've got an engineer coming." I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, when do you have an engineer coming? Why would you need one for a roof? And he explained to me, he goes, insurance company hires them basically to kill the claim. And I said,
that's the way this guy described it to you.
Yes, that's the way he described it. And I go, fair enough. I said, fair enough. And that was like 13, 14 years ago plus. And I go, okay, fair enough. So I meet him out there, and it's this old Victorian in Rockford, Illinois. All kinds of issues.
I'm coming back to this.
You're practicing the public just as a ladder says, yeah, dude. Well, yeah. So I was really almost practicing as like a PE or a IA, right? Acting as a ladder assist is really what it was. Actually, let me see the comments so I can see them. But getting back to it, I basically handed him his lunch and was all over the roof, and there's like a part of like a 12-12 and like all this, and he never left the ground. And I kind of embarrassed him in front of like the property owner and everybody. And I basically, he felt like an asshole. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know how to respond.
Right.
And he calls me 15 minutes later, goes, "Hey man, you want a job?" I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, how about you do this, but the opposite with me, like 5 times a day, like 3 days a week." And I go, "Yeah, all right." I was somebody back then, a lot less
meaning where you don't find the shit. Yeah.
Well, where I browbeat the contractors on predominantly commercial claims, because I knew a lot about even commercial roofing back then, because I was in the trades. I was in real estate development, like large commercial mixed use development. And I said, yeah, back then, was young, stupid, had no ethics, whatever. And I was like, money sounds great. I mean, there were days we made a couple grand a day. That as a side job sounds pretty good. And after 2 years, I was like, can't do this shit anymore, man. Having a little bit of an ethical conflict here, and brought it up to somebody in authority, and they acted as if, hey man, don't worry, it's cool. Well, in the meantime, that second year, I had started selling commercial roofs for a roofing company in the industry. Okay.
Okay.
And long story short, I had hired Donan to do inspections on a couple of my jobs for the insured, for the plaintiff side. Because
Okay.
I learned enough to know that if Donan writes, hey, man, there's hail damage here or something,
Right.
you're in, baby. Right. So I did that. And I'm like, we're good. I got some good pricing on it. Well, the way I realized they were trying to blackball me, and I was asked about this in a couple different legal proceedings, and I said, fucking try me, dude. You want to say I'm lying? You want to say, like, you say I never worked for you? You want to see the tax docs? Like, come on, man. And the guy I used to work with doesn't work for you anymore. He'd be glad to air some laundry, but they backed off. So this all happened. And the reason the way I found out that I was being blackballed was I had an adjuster call me, because there was 3 claims I called them on. I had an adjuster call me on one of these commercial claims. It was just outside of Aurora, Illinois. The commercial was a restaurant, good people, legit claim. And he goes, you got that donor report for me? And I go, what are you talking about? You got that donor report? And it all clicked. You go, oh shit, I know what's going on. I didn't tell them. I said I had an engineer. I never said it was Donan. When I said, hey, I'm having an ethical issue here, guys, I don't think I can keep helping you fuck people, basically, in so many, more professional words. Somebody got some marching orders, somebody got a hair up their ass, and they called the adjuster and said, don't worry, he hired us to help his people, and we're going to side with you guys even though they paid for it. And I got a lawyer to call and everything else, and they refunded the money, and the reports were never released.
Wow.
So, yes, I still talk to the gentleman, and I'm not going to put his name out there publicly because I don't think he wants to be brought in. He hates drama, and I don't blame him. But he would verify most of this. He wasn't around for all of it because he was gone by that point with a different company in Florida. But still, that was my introduction. And it was shortly thereafter, I was like, fuck this. I'm good, because I was working with a couple PAs that were just horrible, dude. Which a lot of them are. I don't care if people can hate me. There's a lot of very bad PAs. I would say more than half are very bad, dude, because I get those files as an appraiser, as a consultant, as somebody who works with roofers. There's a lot of good ones out there. There's more bad ones. I'm sorry.
What do you mean by bad PA exactly? Are you talking about unethical behavior, or just don't know what they're doing? Or
I would argue that that not knowing what you're doing and taking on files that you're not familiar with, that you don't understand. You don't know what you don't know, but you know sometimes when you don't know and when you shouldn't be taking a file, or recklessly making suggestions.
Unethical?
Yeah, for sure, dude. Absolutely.
You make it when you're a fiduciary. You think that's unethical?
100%. You're telling people, you're putting yourself out there as an expert, and you've been a PA for 3 years. You've been in this industry for 3 years. You were a manager at some fucking multi-level marketing horse shit before this. And now it's like, I'm an expert. No, you're not, dude. You're not an expert. If you can't fucking build that roof, if you can't do any of this shit, but you learned Xactimate and now you're out there skipping away, dude, no, that's not how this works, man. Even with all my construction experience, dude, okay, for 2 years, I basically, in my little free time I had when I had young kids, okay, put myself out there with a guy who was retiring from Madsen, Knepper and Associates from MKA. He was a registered roof consultant, badass, was getting kind of really sick and retired, but had his own company for 2 years, then retired to Colorado. I basically carried his shit, did all this destructive testing, did everything with him, even though I was already working in this industry for over 10 years at that point in construction, just to learn everything I could. So by the time I became a PA, I had this experience, that experience, and worked with a bunch of attorneys already in the real estate world and contract law. And it's like, I've got some guy who this is his third career, has been doing this for 2.5, 3 years, who's an expert. Fuck you, dude. And don't tell people, hey man, you should be doing this, or hey, file a claim, or hey, dude, the number, and I sound like a pissy bitch saying this, but the number of claims I get, and maybe I should be thanking him because I wouldn't be as busy as I am, but the number of things I get across my desk. One was one of the more recent ones we talked about before that I had in the Dallas area, one of the biggest churches in Dallas. Another PA, real well-known guy, gets 145 grand and walks, and it's a victory, and it's on social media and everything else. And then they're filing claim after claim after claim after claim in the next 2 years because they don't know any better, and he's not answering the phone. And I go out there and spend 2 days there, and we find, dude, extensive damage to single ply membrane to the polyiso to all these other, I mean, just all these different areas. I mean, millions of dollars worth of shit he missed, you know, but he didn't care because he made a quick 10 points and was on and onward, dude, you know, out the door. And it's just, it's worse than that. And I'm not going to keep hammering on like a psycho, but it's like, there's just so many different instances that I see on a daily basis. And I understand what Badger is saying with some of the proposals people are not excited about. I disagree with his approach, and I've said this to him. Okay. Public adjusting should be
wrong about a lot of stuff. He's got a concept there. He's trying to create dialogue. That's what he says. Some of the things are far too beneficial and to carriers and detrimental to policyholders to be anywhere realistic. Like forcing PAs to pay for appraisers, by the way.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that that's not great, but I mean, he's the first person that will also say, you know, hey man, I'm going to put these on because I got some work around my house. My noise deadeners. He's the first one that will say, yeah, of course I'm biased. I work for insurance companies. He said that multiple times. But with that being said, okay, there are ways in which that we can accomplish the same things he wants to accomplish and be fair. I would argue that becoming a public adjuster and an IA should be a lot harder. Like some of the things he proposed, dude. Yeah, dude, for sure. Because especially
he wants to make it very difficult to be a PA, but he's not talking about the IA side. You know,
for sure. And I think if you would talk to him, I think if he had a chance to talk about that, he wouldn't have a problem with that. Right. He's not mentioning it, but I don't think he would have a problem with it. You know, and it's,
well, there's so many states that don't require an IA to do anything. You were acting as a ladder assist. They're sending out third parties left and right. Do they even need to have a license anymore? The person that's handling the claims is the desk adjuster more often than not. Honestly, if they're going to force public adjusters to have a lot more to get a better license, then they ought to force the desk adjusters to have a lot more going on as well. And they need to force whoever it is that's touching that file to have the authority to be able to do anything on that file. You can't send someone out as eyes and ears only. That's kind of an issue. But
I think there's a couple different sides to this. And without getting too deep in the weeds, I don't think there is anything wrong. If we want to start with better, right? But I hate the regulations, a nightmare. But if you want to start with a clearer process, and what I would say, and this is what I've said, because there's some regulation that's been coming down the pike for appraisers and umpires. The bad appraisers, the bad umpires, and insurance companies both, and bad actors on both sides are the reason why. It's not one side, both sides 100% are to blame for this. Okay. And what I've said before, and that's why John and I have started working so much together on some of these things, is we as an industry need to do a better job of objectively regulating ourselves. Okay. We need to have better standards out there, and then we need to propose those standards. How? How do
you regulate yourselves? I mean, I can tell you this. I have submitted a lot of information to state departments of insurance against unethical behavior from public adjusters. Nothing ever happens. What do we do for ourselves? There are organizations that I'm a part of that are afraid to get sued, so they don't end up doing anything against their members that are acting unethically. There are some organizations that do a great job with that, but no matter what it is that we do, it's nearly impossible to actually self-regulate.
Here's what I would say.
An enforcement arm.
I think that's true 100%, but I would say this. You have to have the framework that exists first and foremost, and you have to give a lot of people, when they focus on regulation, they want to focus on, and this is the same thing like with campaigning, whatever it may be, they want to focus on the negative. You know, they want to focus on laying the hammer down. That's not how you focus on it. You have to give people something to believe in. You have to give them something positive to lean into, to choose. That makes sense to be beneficial and successful. It's mutually beneficial for everybody. That's why I'm the assistant director of plan now, because John and I agree on every one of these things in the meta sense, where he has the framework that's worked for a very long time. Every class is like half PAs, half IAs with a couple of contractors in the middle. Every single class, man. I've been to a number of them, and I've been a part of a couple now as assistant director. Okay. Quite literally, that is the type of framework you start with. Then you get people from all sides that are good faith actors, some that have a little bit of an audience, like a Steve Badger. That's why he has people like Steve and Chip and some of these other people come in and talk. Okay. You get them involved, and then you start to work with regulators. And a lot of times, because regulators, man, like they're these guys, these are people, men and women that are being pulled. And as much as I'm, as a libertarian, hypercritical of state, federal governments, everything, okay, even local municipalities, we have these idiots that run village boards and city councils. They're people that are being pulled in 5,000 directions, and their ears are being filled with different things. So we have to be the people to say, hey, here's a comprehensive plan, and here we're going to do the heavy lifting and the work for you. We're going to push the boulder up the mountain. And we got people from all sides, a little bit of like a coalition here of sorts of good faith people from all sides that have agreed on this thing together for this. Let's start where it matters. Let's start with somewhere like Texas. Let's start there. Because if you can get something rolling in Texas that is mutually beneficial for all parties, because let's be honest, if some of the shit Steve has proposed, and if some of the shit a lot of these other public adjusters got their way, if that stuff passed, what nobody's thinking about is it creates a horrible environment for employment for all of us. Okay. Because the scales are going to do this on one side or the other. If a lot of things Steve proposes got passed, he would be doing nothing but hourly work for carriers, because there would be nobody that would sue him, and nobody would, you know what I mean? Like it would be,
Even if they sued, the carrier would end up just filing for appraisal.
Well, whatever it is, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Like it's just not beneficial.
Which is what they do now to an extent anyway.
Well, and we can, if you want to talk about that, we could talk more about that, about the appraisal side. But I think in a general sense, that was my answer, I guess you could put.
You know, there is a lot of goodies in there that are meant for the carriers. And some of the stuff is an attempt to make things fair. And I'll have to have Badger on the show soon to talk about that standard appraisal clause. I have an event going on with him at SRC. I'm on the panel to talk to him, but I just did a debate with him with Tim Brown at Hook Agency. There's some videos online. You can check out Hook Agency, one of our sponsors. Take a look at their YouTube page. You get the entire thing. But we didn't really get as detailed into the appraisal stuff that he had as I'd like. So I might have to get him on the show. But there's definitely weird shit there. What is broken about appraisal that makes everyone want to put some changes here? What is it?
It's a couple different things. I think overwhelmingly, and this is where I think I'm one of these people, and I disagree with this thought process, but that's because of my political leanings. Okay. A lot of people get a wild hair up their ass, and their first thought is, we need more government involvement. Like, stop, dude. What are you talking about? Like, overwhelmingly, until something gets super bloated and is like trying to manage like a larger body of people, like a federal level, that's when you see the majority of the issues, right? So it's federal government. It's the banks. It's this, whatever it is, right? It's big federal agencies. I think that's part of it. Part of it is bad faith actors that are just not good at their job on both sides. I try and not be a dickhead on Facebook. I've been getting pushed lately by people that I think you've met some of the people they use for PR stuff and sales. Like you've met Matt. I've been pushed by a lot of them. Hey man, like say more, contribute more. And I'm like, I don't have the fucking time, dude. Like we have like 2-3 years worth of work right now. You know what I mean? Like but I've been doing it a little bit more here and there, but part of the time I want to go, dude, shut the fuck up. Like I just read some of this stuff. I go, you don't know what you're talking about. And for me, when I don't know what I'm talking about, I don't answer. I'll say, hey, here's this, or I'll say, hey, this person might know, because I know that person actually knows. I know they're not some savant that just plays a genius on Facebook. You know, I mean, like I've met them. I've seen their work product. I know they know their shit. They've been doing this for 25 years, you know, and with all that being said, there is so much bad information out there about appraisal and what best practices are. And there's the silver bullet gang. How do you get all this done? Or there's guys who are like, well, you don't have to do this, so don't do it. Well, what's a best practice, man? Like, and that's like, it's the disconnect that causes some of these problems too. Because I'll give you a prime example.
Okay.
Everybody in the industry on our side that talks about things like lump sum estimating. Now they want to do, because it doesn't say anywhere in the appraisal clause that you have to put an estimate together. It doesn't say you have to sign a declaration of appraisers. It doesn't say this. It doesn't say that. Thank you, neckbeard. You know what I mean? Like, thank you for being technically correct. But how about best practices? How about operating from a position of good faith? How are you, first and foremost, what everybody needs to understand about specifically appraisal, it's ADR, alternative dispute resolution. If you're not resolving it and you're just going to be a dickhead and kick the can down the road or fight some more, then stop doing appraisals. It's not for you. It's called dispute resolution.
Is that the biggest issue that you find with
it
then?
Dude, hands
People are
down.
just sticking specifically to the letter of the law and really fighting back hard on that?
They can't take their hats off. The amount of carrier guys that I've talked to, because I talked to a lot of carrier guys, and you and I have talked about this a little bit. When it comes to attorneys, I prefer carrier attorneys for even connecting them and referring them to my clients, because they're not salesmen. They're tried and true, trial attorneys. They have a lot of experience. They have to check conflicts, but when they realize who I am, like ethics wise, they go, all right, I'll talk to your client, and that's the majority of who I use. Now I've started working with a couple of bigger plaintiff attorneys, law firms the last few years, but there's a reason for that. And that's because those guys have the capacity and ability to take a hat off, because they're already busy. They don't really need the money, but if you give them a reason to get interested or say, hey, this is a good case, or there's some money here, this is another lane of business, they go, okay. But that's the problem, is that a lot of these guys they can't step out of their role that qualifies them to be an appraiser. If you're an IA, specifically if you're an IA or a PA, that overwhelmingly, I would say technically, probably, if you know what you're doing, qualifies you to be largely an appraiser. Okay, great.
Right.
But if you just go from point A to point B and start doing appraisals, you're not helping yourself or the industry, and acting as if you know everything after 2 years of doing it. Okay, without you don't need any certification. School of hard knocks. Shut up, idiot. How about you take any class? Take every class you can. That's like, you know how it is in general. Anybody who says, I've learned enough, I don't need to learn anything else, dude, get away from that person. There's always more to learn. There's always more information out there. You could be 75 years old and doing something for 40 years, and you know what? There's still going to be something you don't know that somebody can teach you somewhere.
I have this argument almost every day with somebody, and to be fair, I'm trying to sell education stuff, So, but inevitably, there's somebody that's been doing this for 20-something years, doesn't think that there's anything more that they can learn. Meanwhile, I'm over there asking questions to the guy that's been in for 6 months, because I'm learning a lot of shit from this person that's been doing it for 6 months. And if you'd open yourself up to actually thinking differently every now and then, you'd learn so much. But I just end up with these attitudes where, well, I could probably teach some people stuff, but I know what I'm doing at this point.
Ugh, come on, man.
I'm sure you could teach people stuff.
That's great. Now, is anybody gonna buy tickets? You know what I mean? Like, who cares, man? And there's a couple different guys I do follow on social media that really interest me. I love following, away from this for a second, I love following people that are really good at something. I don't care what it is. If they're just amazing at anything, like there's a guy's like a Porsche fabricator over in Japan, who's like one of my favorite people on social media to follow, because this guy's bananas, like the fiberglass bodies he does. But recently it's been like a couple different metal roofers, like metalsmiths, dude. And I follow these guys, I go, what the fuck? Like the shit they're doing. I go, dude, this is insane, man. And it's so cool. And if you talk to these guys, they know nothing about what I do. They don't give a shit. They hate insurance. They hate all that stuff. But there's such a plethora of information and knowledge that I don't have, because that's the one thing I haven't done a lot of, is like metal smithing. Like, I understand the basis of how it functions, because my dad used to fabricate cars, but it's like aluminum chassis and bodies and shit. But it's like, it's just so cool to me and so interesting to learn. It's just like, if everybody should be taking that approach, and I'll tell you this, one of the most costly mistakes anybody, I'm going to focus on this industry, can make as a PA, especially, but probably any side, but as a PA, because the business revenue, the stream of business that comes in is dependent on a number of different things, is your ego. Your ego, if you have an ego, it's going to cost you so much money, dude. I had a couple adjusters back in the day, large loss guys, who saw I was green 10, 12 plus years ago when I was dealing with some big claims for the first time. They were able to trigger my anger, trigger my ego, and I puffed up and I got mad. And then they played me like a fiddle, man, and got, the property owner or somebody. I was fucked. I lost contracts a few times, 10, 12, because I had an ego. And it's why now, like, dude, like, I still have a temper, but it's like people will say some wild shit to me. I go, okay. I just
You
listen.
can do the opposite. You can play them the other way around. I was the founder owner of All Good Adjustments. We were the largest PA firm in Georgia. I would go out, I meet adjusters. They had no idea I was the owner of that company. I would act like our company was forcing me to do all this other shit.
Yeah.
And it was surprised if they ever found out, it surprised the hell out of them. But most PAs in that kind of a position would be bragging about their shit constantly because they have the ego to do it. And they don't realize they're actually hurting their clients a lot of times when they do that kind of thing.
Dude, and I'll tell you this. I would also say this. Whether it's PA work, appraisal work, or whatever else, there's a way to ethically there's a way to compromise, or there's a way to negotiate without compromising your principles. And I have some roofers every once in a while that refer me to clients that have a hard time understanding that, because the Xactimate estimate doesn't say exactly what they want to say. It doesn't say exactly what they want to see. They'll scream and try and get me to lower my bill and the price list and 10 and 10, 10 and 15. And I go, hey, dum-dum, why don't you write the estimate and see where the numbers fall? Well, it's pretty close, like $50 difference on $70,000 from $500. Who gives a shit, dude? Like, are you joking right now? Like, come on, man. Like, and this is some of it too. It's like, dude, just stop. Because if
is negotiations from, we'll get back on topic for a second here.
Sure.
I think this is a really good question. When writing an estimate, there is a couple of different schools of thought. You can write your estimate high so that when the carrier gets it, then it will end up being negotiated down. They're going to start real low and you'll end up in the middle where you want to be. That's strategy one, right? Strategy two is to write the estimate exactly where you want it and fight tooth and nail for that dollar amount. Even though the carrier is still going to come in lower, you could end up as close to that as possible without having to say that, or you show that you might be somewhat greedy in some way by having these line items that normally you wouldn't necessarily need. Is it unethical to do plan number one, in your opinion?
Well, let me ask you this. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the question. Is that unethical or is that negotiations? Is haggling unethical?
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's considered misrepresentation?
If you can't justify the line item 100%, if it is a justifiable line item, the way it's written in an Xactimate, for a PA writing an estimate and we don't actually have a bid from a contractor, then honestly, it's almost just pointless to even do it, because once the contractor has the bid, it just throws out your estimate in reality.
Well, I mean, and if
in a perfect world,
yeah, if it's proceeding that way. But I'm saying, here's how I this is gonna be such a dickhead answer, but I function between. Okay. The way, and I tell everybody this when we talk about files, when I do PA work, because I do about a dozen large PA deals a year. That's about it. Okay. I keep my license in like 10 states. just for like big deals. And the rest of the time I'm doing consulting and appraisal and umpire work and everything else. Okay. When we do PA work, okay, I tell everybody I'm going to write every single fucking thing on this estimate. I'm going to write it right. I'm going to write it clean, but it's going to be full. And I'm also, from a legal standpoint, I'm going to leave myself a in the header an out of, hey, if I miss something, not to be a dickhead, but if I legitimately miss something that's unseen, unknown, right? Okay. But then
But
I
it's a
will.
good faith estimate. Otherwise, it's not just loaded with shit.
No, it's a good faith. It's a good estimate, and it's a good price point. It's not going to be low, but it's not risk representation. It's clean. And then I'm going to keep that just as that, unless there's an unknown variable or something reasonable that needs to come off or be added. And I am going to, because I always tell everybody, the way we approach all these files is that we are to remain above approach every single step of the way. And I have all these other guys that tell me like, fuck them, they're doing this shit. No, dude, no. Because if it ever goes in front of a judge, you want to be the one, you want to be the team that was always A+, clean, transparent from day one. We've been consistent. This is the story. This is documentation. We're super thorough. Our work product is unapproachable, especially compared to theirs. And at the end of it, you're going to be the good faith individual because that's how you're functioning. It's not a ploy. It's beneficial. All the other, you know what and I always tell people this, the best silver bullet for all the idiots online to have silver bullets is two things: a solid moral compass and an unapproachable work product from a quality standpoint. That's it. But that requires hard work and honesty. And that's something that is in it's a scarcity, right? It's something that's not in abundance.
And I say this exact same thing, but in a slightly different way. You know, you can't half-ass your job. If you can do your job and fully prove the loss fully, then you're going to be successful. And that's where people just half-ass it. They get away with as little as they can. And if they do that, then they're not going to win as many. And then they start to do unethical type things in order to make sure that their income matches their work product. You know,
there's so much work out there, Matt, and you know this.
Yeah.
You're in the middle. You're surrounded by multiple states that have endless work. Okay, when you're done, because you're still down in Georgia, right?
I actually live in Florida right now. We're working on getting out of here.
Okay, so but regardless, you've been in multiple areas where it's just nonstop work.
Yeah,
there is, and maybe it's because I'm from the Midwest originally, from Chicago. Illinois is the land of bad PAs. 100%.
Is it because they're also contractors?
That's a big part of it.
First.
That's part of it. Part of it is the loss. 100%. Dude, you know how many people, just because I've been involved in hundreds, if not well over 1,000 commercial roofs over the years, like big projects. Okay.
Yeah.
Easily, I'd say probably over 1,000 at this point. And the number of people said to me, dude, why aren't you a roofer? Because I don't need that shit in my life, man. Like, I'm fine. I'm good. I make decent money, man. Honestly, I don't really need to fucking convolute all that with a conflict of interest. I'm good.
If you can't see the conflict of interest, you know, the PAs that I teach out of Chicago and Maryland and other states where you can be a contractor and a PA on the same claim, I tell them, if you can get away with it, don't do it. Be one or the other. And do that on all of them. Pick one, you know, because it is a clear conflict of interest. The carriers are going to track you as if you're committing conflict of interest. They will take you more seriously if you are only one or the other. But there's so few legitimate PAs that are just PAs in those kinds of states.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had a roofing company in Georgia when it was legal to do both. And before I started my PA firm, I made that decision and I left the roofing company. I handled the claims for that roofing company for a year or so before I started, or before I stopped working with that same roofing company that was mine. But I was handling claims with other contractors and other PAs as well at the time.
Yeah.
So, and it made a huge difference because I could legitimately say, this is this contracting firm. They're not us. We're not them. You know, this is what their estimate is. It's not me. And that is a huge difference. I don't understand why people don't see that, but that when they do that, though, then they generally act more like a contractor, because in reality, the contractors make more money per claim than the PAs do on those types of claims most of the time. So, of course, they're going to act more like a contractor. This is a whole separate topic. I'm trying to skirt around what I really want to dig into on that, but that's a come to Jesus.
What do you want to dig into?
A lot of PA contractors.
So what is it that you really want to dig into on that?
It's a stupid model, and it
for sure. That's one of the things that needs to go by. You need to have. Yeah. It needs to be harder to be a PA and an IA. They need to have stricter guidelines. I mean, dude, because I'm in both IA forums, and I've never been an IA, but I obviously I start on the other side, so to speak, in this industry. But I'm in both forums on social media, and dude, the number of people that are like, I've been an adjuster for 2 weeks. Can I go to a hurricane? I'm like, what? Oh, hey, 3 weeks here. Yep, I got deployed. Easy cheesy. I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about, dude? Like, you've been doing this for 3 weeks. You have no construction experience. You worked at, like, I don't know, like TCBY yogurt or some shit was your last job. Like, but you're going to be out there, dude.
Now, this is, you said this earlier because of your political leanings, that sometimes there's just too much regulation. Here's an example. In Florida, it just got harder for carriers to perform their duties. They have a shorter amount of time than ever before to determine if there is liability on a claim and produce an estimate and make a payment. And it's too short.
Yeah.
So they have to have all the warm bodies they can to run out there for 15, 20 minutes and write something. Anything.
The unintended consequence of bad regulation, man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And by having to do that, then they're forcing the PAs to get involved. That clearly they underwrote it because they didn't spend enough time on the claim to actually do anything.
I've got one for you here. You want to hear it? Okay. Illinois. Okay. And this is when Badger was, I think it was something that Fappy or somebody had suggested about the reimbursement of fees for, maybe it wasn't them, but somebody was talking about other regulation for reimbursement of fees on ADR. If you win it, that they should pay, basically. It's almost like a punitive damage thing. And the Illinois has a regulation. Kevin, you're probably the outlier.
Friends with those statements. So Kevin says,
yeah,
I don't agree with Matt. Both the PA and contractor keep a clear and definitive line between each action. Maybe you do, but the carriers don't see it that way.
Yeah, I know. Kevin, we've talked a few times. I think Kevin is probably an outlier, if I'm being honest. Kevin has a good reputation for being an objective guy, but Kevin, I'll say the majority of PAs that are contractors are not, dude. I can just tell you from seeing how the donuts are made. You are, but most are not.
Contractors that are also a PA, they just do it so they can get their name on the check.
They're juicing that shit, man. Or they have mitigation companies or whatever else. And it's like, come on, man. And there's a dispute there because they're not making the margins they want to make. Well, go get a couple jobs, dude. You know what I mean? Like, make it up. But anyway, I digress. So Illinois has this regulation. I'm sorry, dude. I wasn't trying to be a dick. There is a law that was passed, signed in Illinois, that essentially states, and I'm going to butcher this, that if the appraisal award is the exact amount or higher of what the demand was, your cost as the insured, your cost for appraisal is reimbursed. Okay. But here's the problem. If you look at the legislation, it doesn't say a whole fuck of a lot more. Okay. So what has that turned into? Well, there's a couple things. First and foremost, it's very political now in a climate that was already toxic as shit. I'm from Chicago, and I'll tell you this. Den of snakes. That's what appraisal is. There's 2 or 3 umpires that'll get picked on everything. One of them's a decent guy. The rest of them are kind of shitheads. Like, they're socially all right, but professionally they're fucking assholes. And then everybody, it's like favor trading. Like, I get you on the next one, brother. Like, get the fuck out of here, man. Do your job. Call balls and strikes. You know? And so what they'll do is the PAs now, their estimates are gonna be higher than shit. because they know anybody who knows how they're doing knows how to do it, work appraisal and kind of play it, which is a handful. Okay. And then nobody will go above that. And then it just pisses everybody off and looks like bad faith. It's stupid. Now, there's the other side. I won't say who, because I'm not going to put his business out there. There's basically one attorney. If you look hard enough, you'll find out who it is. In the state of Illinois, who's an older guy, good dude, who is basically him against a number of, like, 2 different carrier attorneys in that district. Okay. And what they do every time they get an appraisal, they use lawyers, judges, and a handful of guys for the appraisals. Every time it's demanded, they'll put together a huge fucking estimate for the demand. They'll put it forth. They'll put the proof of loss together, the demand, and then they will rush to the courthouse to see who can get their umpire. And then whoever gets the umpire, whoever gets their old judge, instantly unilaterally basically signs an award agreeing for that side. And sometimes we get our fees. Sometimes we get fucked. Well, the truth of the matter is, sometimes this principal gets fucked, or sometimes this principal gets fucked. And nobody's thinking about, like, they're thinking it's like a sport to them. And I even have said to them, I go, oh, so it's just perpetuated nothing but bad faith in ADR. He goes, yeah. It's like, yeah, that's what it is. That's the unintended consequence of regulation. And everybody screeches from the rooftops for more regulation. It's like, no, dude. That's why the answer is one of 3 things. You either regulate the shit out of it, and then it's not a useful tool and it has a bunch of unintended consequences and gets convoluted. Okay. You let that shit burn to the ground like a bubble, like a number of other things have, right? And then it's just, what's the next thing in the cyclical nonsense? Or you find a way to self-regulate in a smaller setting, like a state, and work with a group of people, and then do your best to replicate that and hope it becomes the norm or the standard of practice in those larger demographics where there's a lot of these things occurring. And then maybe in the outlying areas, that will then become the standard practice, the SOP, so to speak, of everything. So that's what we need to do. We need to work with people like Steve. We need to work with people like Matt Moden. I mean, like, a lot of people are like, they're fucking scumbags. No, they're not. They're doing their job, dude. You know what I mean? And it's like, people always call out these
forward to having a beer with Badger next week, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure,
like
man.
No, he says some shit.
He likes stirring the pot.
He says some shit, but I like him.
He likes stirring the pot. I have
mutual respect for him. I know what he's doing.
And I'll be honest with you too. Here's the thing that a lot of people miss from our side of the fence. Okay. You know what Badger's motivations are at worst. At best, he's a decent guy who likes stirring the pot a little bit, but he has good intentions, but he's a little bit biased because that's where, he's not going to shit where he eats. But then you have a lot of plaintiff attorneys, none who I'm going to mention because I don't want to get sued, but they're fucking bad actors, dude. I'm sorry. Any lawyer who tells you, okay, you need me for everything. You can't even write. You can't even do this without an attorney. Fuck you, dude. All you're doing, you're a pig. You're a slob. You're a sow. You want everything for you, and it's all going to be done by you and your firm. It's like, dude, nobody can do that. Nobody can handle that much work. I don't care how big you are. Nobody needs all of it. And the only way you're successful in this industry is by having a network of people that are good faith people that produce good work. Nobody's putting their hand in a cookie jar that's sitting on their hands, and they're all honest, decent human beings. Everybody needs a network like that. The attorneys I do work with, if I do attorney-client matching on a file, if we get a file in and I look at it, we don't charge people for the consults because I'm not an attorney. But if I look at it and I say, hey, because the files dictate, let's talk about this for a second. If let's
pause right there for just a second so I can play lip service to the sponsors. I got a quick video to watch, and we're going to come back.
One of the biggest areas that I got pain problems with is trying to figure out where my data is. Claim Titan is the most useful tool in your tool bag, where I can find everything that I need on the claim in just a couple of clicks. People love portals. This is the email section where you can manage all the mail for your claim. You can track your leads in the system, built-in calendar and scheduling, claim map to track all your claims visually, and the ability to automate just about everything in the system. You don't go reaching for a hammer to screw in a screw. You get the tool that you need for the job.
And it's Matt approved.
I love the end of that.
Yeah, that was, dude. I'm going, holy shit. At the end.
Yeah. So before we got off, you were saying that, the attorneys said that you need to have them and them alone. What about the PAs that have every claim go to an attorney?
100%. So here's what we do. Here's our process to kind of explain my perspective on this. David Group is we consult and look at the files, okay? The claim, whatever it is, the potential loss, okay? And anybody who's been doing this long enough and has worked in all aspects of this, okay, knows there is one thing overwhelmingly that dictates what direction or resolution pathway the file should go, and that's the file itself, okay? We pride ourselves in not putting square pegs into round holes, okay? If I have a file that's been misrepresented or beaten into submission by a carrier and it's denied 4 times over and there's multiple experts on it and everything else, and it's just a situation where I go like, what am I really going to do as a PA? How am I going to combat the 4 experts into this and the weather and the all this shit, because it's going to end up in court. Okay. That for me, it's an attorney-client matching situation. So I go, hey, here's a couple of attorneys that I know that aren't scumbags, that aren't going to mislead you. They'll have a sliding scale agreement with you. Okay. They're not going to overcharge you. They're really reasonable. They're really fair. They practice in your district, your state, whatever it may be. Talk to them. Okay. I vetted them. I know people that have used them. They're good human beings that just also happen to have a law license. Okay. And then it maybe on that file, they use this for the consulting and the expert work. Maybe they don't, but people go, what do you really make on it? Nothing. I don't make anything on it. I just refer them because that's what you do when you have other.
You can't get a referral fee from an attorney referral anyway.
Yeah, dude. It's like, they're
Unless
like, what do you
have apparently some kind of an out of state holding company that is.
I knew you were gonna go there. Jesus.
There's some,
But anyway, that's a topic of conversation.
but anyway,
Yeah. But in PAs, it's the same thing. There's guys that see like kind of the pipeline that I've developed with our company, how we get business. They go, so fucking PA, all that shit. I go, why? Half of them don't need it. Half of them need an appraiser. Half of them, a bunch of the time, like anything that comes in from a number of carriers, okay, I'll literally look at it and I'll go, I can get this done as a consultant. I can call them, talk to the adjuster and say, hey man, they could go to appraisal on this, but it's really unnecessary. Let me save you a headache of you looking like an asshole to the inside guys. Okay. Whoever's going to overlook this file. There is a laundry list of shit you missed. I don't think we even need to go to appraisal. Can I send this to you and not disqualify myself potentially as an appraiser just because I've looked at the loss? I've kind of begun like my appraisal of the loss combined with kind of like what they brought, like from a preliminary standpoint. Can I give this to you? And with certain carriers, they're going to go, yeah, please send it over. And they'll go, hey, dude.
do you get paid for that?
Well, yeah, of course, the consulting. We do it as hourly work, just like appraisal. And
Okay.
yeah, and I'll say, and I'll meet them out there sometimes. They'll meet, like maybe they'll hire JS Held or somebody else. And I'll meet them out there, and they go, "Oh fuck, dude, they missed a ton of shit." And I go, "Yeah." And they go, "Here's another couple $100,000 on the file," and they'll come back and they'll ask me the contractor and the insurer, and everybody says different. And I go, "Yeah, dude, that's fair. Like this is what you should have gotten the first time, but there were mistakes made on all sides. Close the file, man. 30 days. Let's get her done." You know what I mean? Like there's probably 20%.
Sometimes it just makes a huge difference to change hands on a file. In my company,
Yes.
we are desk adjusters, and it didn't matter who was closing the file the way that our desk adjusters were paid. Most of them were on salary plus some bonuses and things. So they could take a file, and if they were hitting a brick wall, they could just hand it to somebody else. And, they
Yes.
put enough notes in their CRM, which you absolutely have to do to make this work, that someone could just pick that file up without asking any questions and know exactly what's going on with it. And the fact that it was somebody else, it didn't matter if it was your worst PA, the fact that somebody else was talking at that moment changed everything. And so being able to just hand it off to somebody else, like a consultant where you got involved, to be able to say, yeah, there was definitely mistakes on both sides. You could throw the other PA in your company under the bus if you need to. He probably should have done this. He probably should have done that. Let me take care of that right now, though. Suddenly the file's moving again, and it just makes a difference. You get so twisted up with the other individual that you're on the phone with or over the email with that sometimes you just need somebody else to get involved and step in between, even if it's another PA. That makes a huge difference.
There was a thread a while ago. I think it was on Facebook, and Danskin was actually on it too. He commented on it. And it was, I forget who said it, but it might've been you, somebody else, but they said, what's some good advice out there for PAs? And I think Matt said, stop filing junk claims. That's a big one.
Number one.
Yeah. I had a punch list of shit that I was annoyed with that I kind of vented. But overwhelmingly, I think if you look at, the context, okay, and this is but kind of to your question of what about the PAs that just file shit to a lawyer? Okay. If you are doing anything but effectively estimating, negotiating, doing all those things, acting as a PA within your knowledge basis and ability, stop. There are people, I'm not going to mention anybody's names, a lot of people that are very popular that are some of the best salesmen I've ever seen. They are hell of a business people. They're great salespeople. They're not good PAs. They're not good appraisers, but they put themselves out there to be expert appraisers and expert PAs. Let's be clear. Just because you're great at developing sales pipelines does not make you a good PA. You better understand policy. You better be able to do everything that necessitates you being qualified to be a public adjuster. Because here's something else that people are forgetting. Okay. The days now are here of appraisers, PAs, umpires needing to have GL and errors and omissions because people are going legal. Okay. So for all those PAs, appraisers, umpires out there that are winging it, okay, just to make some dough, and they're better at networking than they are at producing a good work product, your days are numbered, dude. I'm telling you, because there are appraisers and PAs across the country and umpires that, and there's even good ones that are getting sued. That is bullshit. Okay. If they're getting sued, some of these guys I know that are solid human beings and really good at their job, you motherfuckers are in deep shit. like seriously deep shit, because you don't even know what you're doing, you know, but people are scared to say something because, and it's not one person, it's a lot of them, because you're really big on social media and nobody wants to say this person's an asshole or they're not good at their job. You know what I mean? Like the days are coming
to say things like that. They're afraid to speak up at times about,
they don't want to get sued. They don't want to get sued either.
Those kinds of personalities tend to have a lot of friends too.
Yes.
And so they might get browbeat for speaking up oftentimes.
Yes.
I can say this about the salesman PAs that put themselves out there. I'm not terribly mad about that concept as long as you actually have a team behind you that's going to handle it.
And that's fair.
You're not the guy that is Johnny on the spot with those claims. I'm okay with it.
And as long as you're not giving big swing and dick advice, as grotesque as that sounds.
I like that too.
As long as you're not acting as like the resident expert and you tell people, hey man, I'm a PA, or hey, I'm a this, but I'm really just a fucking business machine. I'm a guru, really. And I'm good at my job. That's fine.
I like the ones that actually say, you know, I'm very good at sales. I bring in a lot of claims, but my team is the reason that we're successful.
But then when it comes
to admit the truth, and they're better for it, you know.
But when it comes to things like really big appraisals, okay, there are carrier guys out there that I've known for 10 years that are big dogs. Okay, they're guys with high authority. They've been doing this shit for 20 plus years. You know, and it's just, they're not going anywhere until they die. They're going to do this shit forever. And there are people out there that say, oh, I love that individual. Why? Because they don't know what the fuck they're doing. I lay them down every single time. It's like, well, if that's the case, because appraisal, let's be clear, appraisal is this, okay? Appraisal is one of these situations where, and this is where it's different from PA work. overwhelmingly, there's a precedent that a person's supposed to be named as the appraiser, or a person's supposed to be named as the umpire, not an entity, because you're not really supposed to be able to hide behind that corporate veil. They want a person named.
Yeah.
So
it's not a panel. It's not a party.
Yes.
Name an appraiser.
Yes. So as a member of the panel, you are the appraiser. If you can't do the job, and I'll give you a prime example. If it was something like inland marine, okay, I told a buddy of mine out in Seattle, I would love to get into it because it's such a small market. It's such a small group of people that work in that.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I know
it's
a
easy
handful of guys
money.
who do aircraft
Yes.
and marine, and I want to get into aircraft so bad. I had a
Yeah.
whole background in aircraft as a kid. It was just that would be something for me. But
And
hard to break
it's
into that.
well, there's very little competition, but it's a knowledge base that I don't really have. I kind of understand it, but if I was to take it on, what I would do is I would actually give it to somebody else in my company or somebody else that I know that has the experience, and not take any money from them. Just give it to them and just watch.
Let me take this moment. If anybody's watching this that knows someone that you would say they are an expert in marine or aircraft public adjusting, and they would be decent on camera, I would like to have them as a guest. Please send them an invite on my behalf and have them reach out to me.
I know a guy. I actually know a guy.
Yep, perfect.
He's an IA, but he works on all sides.
I don't get enough IAs on the show. They oftentimes they are excited to come on, and either they're unwilling to talk shit about the PAs as soon as the camera turns on, or their company won't let them do it. So it's
well, I will, Steve. I'm going to give him your name. So
that would be great.
He's a buddy of mine from out in Seattle. But if that would have come my way, I would give it to somebody else like a Steve or like somebody else that knows this stuff. And I would just watch them intensely and watch everything occur so I could learn. Right. And that's the thing is that if you are one of these people, and I don't want to spend a lot more time on this, but if you're one of these people that is a sales guru, people can say you have a reputation of not being very good when the rubber meets the road, then maybe you should step back and operate more as a CEO.
Yeah.
Sorry. So that's my final thoughts on that.
You're not wrong. All right. So, we've barely scratched the surface on our actual topic, but we've run out of time.
Fair enough, man.
You know, we got into some interesting conversations. We'll have to have you back on the show, and we'll talk about, maybe we'll get a little bit more specific on our topic so that we can stay within a little bit of a realm.
What was the topic?
It just spotting and stopping unethical practices in claims and dispute resolution, but it was too broad, I think. So we got into some of this, but we ran out of time. So let's talk. We're going to do this again.
Okay.
I had a lot of fun on this show. So let me bring you back on and talk about spotting unethical behavior for the new guys that just don't know when they're being fed bullshit or when something's going a little bit fishy and they can't figure out why. Let's talk about spotting it down the road. But like
John, I agree with you, Kaiser. I agree with you. I think it's a good idea.
Actually, this is what's your thoughts on having the same rules for IAs and PAs in each state? Example, a state that requires PAs to be licensed, bonded in CE, but IAs have no requirements. I agree. It should be equal per state because there's no way to have a federal level on this. There's too many different laws and regulations per state, but on a per state level, I think that they should be equal. An IA and a PL could even be the same license as long as they're not acting on a claim for both sides at the same time. There doesn't necessarily need to be two separate licenses. I don't think so.
So can I throw my some context out there? If you want to get a hold of me, TD as in Tom David, tdgroup.us, the David Group, tdgroup.us, or Zachary Baker on social media on Facebook. But also the plan appraiser and umpire class. If you want to get the certification, we have a class coming up in Colorado in, I believe, February, right after Valentine's Day. Theplanonline.org. Theplanonline.org is where you can look at the events list, or just reach out to me and I can get you whatever information you need. So
planonline.org.
Yeah, theplanonline.org.
I spelled that right?
It's got a the before it, but that's fine.
planonline.org.
Yeah.
The.
Dude,
Let me get this. I got this. I got this.
I appreciate it, man. For
The
plugs.
planonline.org.
Yep. We have
I
a
feel
whole
like-
schedule coming up next year too.
I got it that
There
time.
it is. There it is.
I'm good at typing, guys. This has been the first show or first episode this year. I think we're on season 5 at this point.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. There is so much that's coming up this year. We've got some big guests. It's interesting what has happened in the last 6 months, the type of people that have reached out to me to be on the show. So stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe specifically on YouTube if you can, youtube.com/listentothisbull. Subscribe to that channel. You'll get a lot of notifications when things are coming up, but we have some really big episodes planned. And thank you to the sponsors that have hung in there with us. I got Claim Titan, which you just saw a commercial for. If you are a public adjuster, you need a CRM. You have to have one to do your job. You even are required by most states to keep records anyway. Claim Titan is a fantastic CRM, and he is still adding more and more features. But I got a video coming up, just did with him with some upcoming features I'm going to publish in the next week or so. Building Experts Institute, if you haven't figured out what that is yet, that is a company I'm a part of. BuildingExperts.institute is an online membership portal for go at your own pace training that is very in-depth, very detailed, and highly cinematic. It's actually a pleasure to watch some of these videos as well. So get your team involved in that. It's cheap as hell. It's $109 a month. It's cheap as hell. Hook Agency, if you're a roofer, Hook Agency is a fantastic marketing firm. They're so good. They got me to get a tattoo at an expo for free. I got a free tattoo at an expo. That's how good they are selling people on stuff. Good marketing firm. American Policyholder Association is that organization that is uncovering and putting evidence together to prosecute against fraud committed by insurance carriers. And there's Huggins Law Firm. Remington Huggins, usually my co-host, who is out of town for vacation, will be back next week. He'll tell you about Huggins Law Firm when he gets back. Thanks for being on, Zach. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Check out that Plan Network. It is actually really good. I'm going to go to the one in Tennessee coming up.
Nashville, yep.
Yeah. So if you guys want to go to the one that's in Tennessee, what were the dates on that? I think it was.
Dude, I'd have to look, man.
I
to be
got
honest
it.
with you.
I got it because I wrote
got
it
it?
down. It is. I think it's in March. It is March 18th through the 20th. I'm going to be there on that one. It's actually the whole week. I'm going to be able to be there those 3 days. I might be able to make it the rest of the week though. But if you guys want to see me out there, I think that's in Nashville. Plan Network.
You're right. Yeah.
Yep.
March
So,
18th. Yeah. The 22nd.
Perfect. Either way, I'll see you guys next Tuesday.
Thanks again, Matt. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
Later, guys.
Take care.